If you want to know about movies and movie-related discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz, and I'm here today with...
Kim Shactman.
Oh my God, you're back!
I'm back.
What happened?
I'm back. It's been like forever. I know.
Well, in all fairness, one of the weeks I was sick. So...
and then the other week I was sick, and then last week was a nightmare for me with working.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No,
that fun thing we call work.
Oh, I remember how that was. Absolutely. That's terrible. Okay. We're going to start by doing the review of the documentary Tower from 2016, directed by Keith Maitland. The reason why I did an all-documentary week this week is because the first thing that we talked about before we did the review thing on my podcast is that one of your favorite things to watch are true crime documentaries.
Yes.
And I kind of took a backseat from documentaries because I'm not really well-versed in them, and it's kind of hard for me to review them, but I figured since this is your wheelhouse, you might be interested in doing a documentary at this point. So we did a whole week of documentaries, mainly because of you. So why don't you go over...
Thank you so much.
No problem. Yeah, no problem. Explain to me and to the audience why you like true crime documentaries.
I think it's because I just cannot get over the fact that this is real, right? Like this has really happened. And it interests me, especially the documentaries and docuseries that go into the mind of the murderer or the killer or the shooter or whatever. Mm-hmm. Because from like a mental health perspective, which, you know, I'm a huge advocate for, like, I always wonder, like, what could we as a society do better? Right? From like a mental health perspective. It just is very fascinating to me how it occurs, why it occurs, where it occurs, who it's occurred to, and I just can't get over it. So I've watched everything from the Amanda Knox story to American Murder, The Family Next Door, and like the Tinder Swindler, which I thought was very interesting, by the way. And they're all a little bit different, which is crazy because, you know, you think, well, one murder, you know, they're all the same. It's not like that. It's just different perspectives and different criminals. And you have to think about it too. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, Wiz, but like, I've noticed there's a wave with women lately, and it's like in memes and reels and all over the internet of how drawn we are as women to true crime.
That has been that way for a very long time. Like most people who watch true crime shows or crime shows and everything have been predominantly women. That's also why one of the most popular TV shows in the country is Law & Order SVU, which is a crime show based upon sexual-based crimes, which to me, I would be like, I'd be mortified to watch something like that. But women love that show. But I think they also like it because they like Mariska Hargitay, so that might be another thing.
See, like, I'm not into that show. It's weird. Like, it's very strange. But, like, you know, it's just interesting. And yes, like, I am ready. You know, if somebody tried to kidnap me, like, I know what I need to do. You know, like, and I'm like, I tell my husband, I'm like, don't fuck with me. Like, and, you know, there's jokes all over the internet, but it's true. Like, we watch, like, a lot of women watch so much true crime. Like, I could fucking get away with it.
Oh, God, you guys are your own paralegals, for God's sake.
We are, like.
God.
And this is my husband, like, don't fuck with me. Like, you'll be fucking, they'll never find your body.
You'll be part of a Lifetime special in no time, bitch.
Exactly. And he's like, not if I get to you first. I'm like, oh, fuck.
That's great. It is so good that you're in such a healthy, loving relationship with your husband. It's really nice to hear.
Next week is my 9-year wedding anniversary, and we've been together for 15 years, so there's that.
Let us get to the review of the documentary Tower from 2016, directed by Keith Maitland. I am curious as to your thoughts of it first, so why don't you go right ahead and discuss Tower?
Because I'm totally the expert. No. So first of all, I didn't even know this happened, like, in history. Like,
really?
I had no idea. Yeah.
Huh.
Like, I just didn't know. Like, I mean, it happened in 66,
yes.
It? Yeah. So, like, this documentary came out in 2016, so I didn't even know it happened, which I thought was interesting. I'm not a huge history buff either. Like, I feel like I do learn things from documentaries and true crime, like, of what happened in history. Like, I was never into history in school. So I thought this was interesting because I was also curious, like, was this one of the first mass shootings? Like, you know, like in the US maybe, I don't know, like, because it seems like mass shootings now are happening more in the 2000s versus, you know, back in the day. So I was curious, and I'm like, I should probably Google that. But overall, I did enjoy the film. I'm curious to hear what you know about, like, mass shootings.
Well, let me tell you about my wide variety of knowledge on mass shootings. I might be wrong, but I think this is the first mass shooting in America. But I think the statistics or this kind of thing hasn't been documented until around this time. So if you were to say, well, what about mass shootings that happened in the Wild West days? Were they documented? Probably not. Like something along those lines. But I think the one that was documented on TV, this might be the first. In regards to the movie, I am very mixed on this movie. The reason why I'm mixed is because I don't know exactly what this movie is. What I mean by that is this movie is considered documentary. What this movie is, it is a drama film for 50 minutes that it also looks like a mockumentary of sorts. And it's rotoscoped over actors who are acting through a green screen. We probably didn't read about this. I read about this a little bit because I was still not sure of how I felt about the film. But apparently how they did this is the actors acted behind a green screen in the director's backyard. And then after they did the scenes, the director basically shot scenes near the Texas Tower, the University of Texas Tower. And then they hired an animation studio to animate over all of that.
Interesting.
With the footage that they had as well, because there's some archival footage. The
original footage.
Yeah, so there's some archival footage as well in the movie to give it that kind of feel to it. The reason why I am really mixed and not sure how to feel about this movie is because I'm not sure if the film is a scripted movie. Or if it is just the interpretation of an interview that these victims had that is then put into film like this.
I took it as an interpretation. That's how I took it. Because, I mean, and, you know, I'm sure Wiz will tell you we're doing spoilers throughout this review. But at the end, you know, they kind of show the actual people, like the victims that, or, you know, whatever, involved. They're also in the film as an animated character. So, like, if they have those victims at the end of the film, like, why wouldn't they interview them and then take their interpretation?
No, I get that. But what my question is, because in the way what most documentaries work is that there is an interviewer and interviewee. Is the stuff that happened in the movie. So, for example, what happens is that the victims of the ones that survived this, okay, they are talking like they were being interviewed, but they're interviewed in that style of animation, like they're talking around that time. And it's a decent effect until you hit a certain character at about 5 minutes in. And then that's where it kind of fell apart for me. And the character I'm talking about is the child that got shot on the bike. The reason why immediately the effect went gone for me was because the child did not sound like a child when he was speaking. He was too introspective for someone who was, I think, about 8 years old at the time.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, I was like, okay, something's up here because I don't know what this is now.
You're reading way too much into this.
Okay, that's fine, and that's fine.
I didn't even, like, notice it. I was just like, yeah, that, like, he's an adult now and he was a kid then, and, like, this is, like, I get what you're saying, though. Like, I understand, but like, then, how they were supposed to come across. But
my problem is that in that twist that happens about an hour in was ruined at that point. Because at that point, it was either, this is very much scripted, and the person who wrote the script is bad at their job because they made a 8-year-old kid sound like he was 50, right. Or what happens at the tail end where the people who were victims are being interviewed as they presently are.
Actually, you're right, because the women and the men's voices, like even, I mean, they seem like they were like teenagers that were in it, or in their 20s.
Right.
They sounded younger, like their voiceover characters or whatever.
Because those were the actors who were acting in it. So
that's what I mean. I think you are right in that aspect with the child.
I don't know whether to criticize it over the acting and the directing and the choices that it made, or to criticize it as a documentary. Because either way, I have problems, and I'm just not sure. And I'm just not sure exactly where to go on this.
I kind of like that it's a little bit of a mystery.
I don't, because then I don't know But here's why I don't like it, because I want to know what exactly is authentically from the victims. I don't know whether what they're reading from is from a script or if it's coming from them organically.
That's fair.
Because that's the thing with documentaries. You want it to be organic. You don't want to watch a documentary and go, oh, it's just like reality TV. That they're just rehashing everything. Now, some will criticize that point in one distinct area, and I will go over that too, is that you have to expect at some point that these people, when they talk about certain things, they've been coached to a certain extent, or they know the questions that are coming. But it's up to the interviewer to then throw them a curveball and get something real out of it.
Right.
I don't know if there's something real out of this movie other than their experience of what happened. When I watch these movies, I want to see something that I wouldn't have thought about, or I wouldn't have really begun to think about until it was mentioned from like an interviewer or from a person that says something. And I didn't get that from this movie. I got the basic things of how scary it was to be in that situation, which I get. You don't have to tell me that. I understand that it has to be a incredibly scary situation, but I didn't get the things I would get from, like, let's say, an Errol Morris documentary who did like The Thin Blue Line, who gets incisive questions that will get to the bottom of a certain thing that you weren't expecting. That's what I was kind of expecting from this movie. Instead, it just seemed like it's a cross between a C-grade drama and a cookie-cutter documentary with some decent animation. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is the first documentary I've seen with animation.
There's very few of them. I think it's this and Waltz with Bashir is the other one. There might be more, but...
So I kind of enjoyed it because
okay.
I've never seen one with animation, and I thought it kind of broke it up a little bit. But I understand where you're coming from. From your point of view, it's kind of like, okay, well, is this real or is this scripted? Is really what it comes down to.
And if it's all scripted, then it's not. To me, it's not a documentary.
Agreed.
It's a drama.
Right.
But then, and this is the.
But
the
like
other...
it confuses me a little bit too, because they have like the real footage that they mix in with the, I guess, victims talking.
Yeah, which I think looks terrible.
So it makes me wonder, like, is it real? You know what I mean? Like, is it, from an interview, or I don't. I guess it is pretty confusing now that you say that.
And here's the thing. This is a celebrated documentary. A lot of people like this. And what I'm going to say is going to be against the grain. Wow. Surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I know, right? But I understand the guttural feel that people have of this movie, because if you don't catch that, like I did, I can understand when the real victims pop up like that.
Yeah,
the effect that has.
Really great. Like, I enjoyed that. I was like, oh wow, like, this is what they look like now. They're still alive. They're still, and they talk a little bit about their lives today, and I kind of liked that. Right.
Like, I honestly would have preferred this to just be a straight drama and see what they could do with it. I really don't know exactly how to feel about this, because I want to say that I don't think this is a documentary. I think it's a quasi-documentary, but it's really a drama. If I criticize the film based on that, it's going to be a low grade, because I think the acting is pretty bad, and I think the decisions that they made in the animated sequences was also not great. As a documentary, it's okay. It's kind of standard.
I've seen worse. I can tell you that.
Yes, no, I agree. Like, as a documentary, and that's the thing I have a problem with, if none of this is scripted, then I would say it's okay. It's a decent movie. It's definitely unique, and I would say for someone who's interested in the topic, yeah, give it a shot. You might really like it. Either it's a mix or it's a drama that is heavily scripted, But of course, if it's scripted, it's probably based on the accounts of what these victims have said. Sure. The filmmakers
Okay, are
cheated.
you ready for this?
Go ahead.
You ready?
Go ahead.
I just Googled it.
Go ahead.
So I wrote, was the documentary Tower scripted? And they wrote, there is no live footage of the shooting, so with the help of technology, the filmmakers recreate the events for us using advanced animation techniques and voiceovers of actors reading the personal written accounts of the people who were there.
So what it sounds like...
So that kind of...
No, it really doesn't answer anything.
Well, yes and no, but like...
Exactly, yes and no.
The actors reading the personal written accounts of the people who were there. So, I mean, it's like scripted, but not really, because it's accounts of people who were there.
To me, that sounds scripted. To me, that's like you're taking someone's... That's what's called film adaptation. That's when you take an article or a book or whatever it is. You take the source material and then you turn it into a script. That's adapting it into a script. But that also sounds very wishy-washy. Because to me, that sounds like there's enough of an argument to say, but is it? It's like, because that's where I'm like, that doesn't really answer anything for me. My question specifically is this, okay? And I would like to know this. Did the filmmakers interview these subjects in a style of a documentary? They had the back and forth with the interviewer-interviewee. And those answers were used to create those scenes. If that's what happened, then yes, I would call that a documentary. Like, if you read right there and said it took the written accounts of all these people and then put that part into film, and then in the last 30 minutes they had that documentary part, it is a short feature theatrical film drama with a documentary tacked on.
Yeah, I would have to agree there.
Because if that's how I have to look at it, then my rating is not going to be good. Because the acting in this is wooden. I just did not... I think there was one character in this movie that I actually believed to a certain point, and that was the person who was working at the co-op who went from looking after the kid who got shot to then being deputized at the end. That's like the only character that I looked at and went, I kind of believe that character. Like that one. The rest, as they were presently written, I had a bit of a hard time believing a lot of it. I didn't get that feel that you would get from a good documentary where you are hearing the testimony of an actual person who is doing this.
There wasn't like a lot of depth to it.
You could have had a lot of depth. Honestly, you could have had a lot of depth in it because
could have. Those are
right.
You know what I mean? Like they're
right.
I didn't feel like the other characters really gave, or I shouldn't say characters, victims. Oh, you're already changing my mind. I said characters. Victims like had a lot to really add in a way. They did and they didn't.
But see, here's the thing, okay? That would be the job of the interviewer to get more out of that. Because if this was a documentary, I think a good interviewer could get more out of these situations and then turn that into what could be on screen as, like, let's say a Unsolved Mysteries style kind of thing where the interviewer is interviewing the person, they're saying something, and then it's interpreted on screen for you. I forget exactly what they call it. I think that could have been done pretty well. But in this movie, it just didn't feel like that's what happened. It just feels like they had the 55 minutes of that drama that was done the way it was, and then the last 30 minutes was the documentary. Honestly, I have a problem with that. I don't have and I'm not offended by it. That's not what I'm trying to say. I think that it's messy in a way that I don't think it was necessary to be messy. I would have actually preferred a Talking Heads documentary over what was done here, because the animation's fine, but I at the end I questioned, why is it there? Like, why is this animated? For what purpose does it need to be, other than it looks kind of neat?
Well, I almost felt like when I was watching it, like the only thing I thought of, like maybe what the director was trying to portray, like it was almost like maybe the animation made me feel this way, almost like a work of art. Like all the color, like going back and forth to the black and white, and then like cutting in some of the like archival footage, and then going back, like I almost felt like they were trying to like be more artsy with it than it needed to be. Like, it's like, this is a documentary, not like an artistic piece, but I don't know. That's like the feeling I got from it.
It could also be the director wanting to have two ends, who wants to do both. He wants it to be a work of art and a documentary. To me, I think it didn't work. I think what they were trying to do was make it feel more surreal. So it felt like a surreal situation that you were in with these characters.
Right.
I think that might have been what he was going at with this. I just don't think it really worked. Because the only time where something surreal happened was in a sequence where the pregnant victim was talking about the boyfriend that she had that died in the shooting and how they met, and they go through this kaleidoscopic kind of 60s kind of motif of what happened and how they met and everything like that. Like, that's like the only time where there was flourish there when it came to the animation. Other than that, the main thing was, like, I don't understand why this had to be animated, other than to give it a distinct look.
Well, I think they nailed it with this distinct look, because you have to remember, too, like, you watch a lot of animated films. I don't.
Sure.
So when I watch this, of not being versed in animation, I'm like, oh, wow, this is really cool looking.
The animation's not
like,
bad. The animation's not bad. I just don't understand why it had to be
like,
animated.
why, right. I don't think it had to be. I think maybe that's just how he wanted to portray it.
Right.
And I think that's really it. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there's really like any meaning behind that. Other than just, I want it to look kind of different than all the other documentaries out there.
In that sense, it succeeded. I just don't think it succeeds in what its main purpose is.
Okay, so here's another write-up of this. So I just want to go back to this because I know you were like, were they being interviewed or not? Mm-hmm. Like, the film documents the University of Texas Austin Tower shooting of August 1st, 1966 by combining animation and archival footage with interviewees recalling their actions before, during, and after the shooting.
But see, that still doesn't answer my question. My question is, specifically, was what the director did was, let's interview these people, and then with what they said, animate that with the characters as actors speaking what they said.
Well, doesn't interviewees recalling their actions, like, that's an interviewee is someone you interview.
But that doesn't really get to the specifics. I want to know specifically what happened. All that's saying is they interviewed these people, and with those interviewers, they animated what they said. What I want to know is specifically what they said is what's in the movie. Because if it's not, if they interviewed them and then said, okay, let's take what they did in the interview and let's fashion it into them saying this. Or if it is that, then it's a drama film to me. It's not a documentary.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's probably has so I guess maybe it is scripted, because I'm sure it's not like word for word if they were interviewing somebody, you know what I mean?
But that's my question, because if it is that, then I would give it a little more leeway. I would say, okay, that it is a good movie to me.
I think they took like a lot of what they interviewed the actual victims at the end. I think they took a lot of it, and like you said, they probably rewrote it, and that is what you call scripted. So probably, but I mean, I bet a lot of it isn't like false. Right. You know, it's not an actual interview over the animation.
I am not saying what the director did was falsify something. I don't think that's what happened here. And I understand that some of the characters died as time went on. So they couldn't interview everybody.
Right.
So they had to script some things. But then if that is truly the case, that they had to script some things, I then have to take what they did and criticize it on that end. And I would have to say that it's pretty bad. But
I don't know. I thought it was okay. I didn't really think it was that bad. And again, I have seen a lot of documentaries and true crime. And some that I've seen in the past, like, they don't come to mind because I kind of blocked them out of my mind because they sucked so bad. Like, to the point where, like, I have to shut it off because I'm like, this is so unbelievably boring. I can't finish watching this. But this held my interest enough to be like, what's going to happen? Like, what's happening at the end, you know? Like, so I didn't think it was that bad. overall.
It held my interest only because I still couldn't figure out exactly what I was watching.
For you, with like your movie buff brain.
Yeah.
And for me, I was just kind of like, oh wow, like,
my movie buff brain.
This is a really tragic event, and I just want to hear more of what the victims have to say.
Right. So but I don't think my feelings of it wasn't because I already knew about the event. Like, I've known about this event for quite a while. My issue really just stems to, I want to know exactly what this is. Because if it's pure documentary, and what they did was I'm going to keep reiterating
I don't think
the same
it was. I don't think it was.
I don't think it was either. Because
how can it be if like a lot of them are dead too? Well, not a lot. There was probably like 2 or 3 people that had died.
Well, they could use archival footage from interviews that these people had.
But did they have any?
Yes, they did. They had the one of the one cop.
The cops.
Yeah,
and
I think they also had one of the guy who was deputized. I think they did have that.
They did, but when I was like reading up, I mean, I was just on Wikipedia, whatever. Who knows how real that is? But when I was reading up on it, like they didn't have a lot of footage. They said that's another reason why they did like the animation.
Okay, so then it's pretty much scripted at that point.
Yeah, I guess that gives you your answer.
Okay, so then if that's the case, then, and I hate doing this because I really just want to know what this is. But if that's the case, and I have to
Who can you write? Who can you send an email? You're like, hey!
Answer my question, goddammit!
I'm not going to be able to sleep until you tell me what this is.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Now I want to know. Like, now I'm like, now... You fucking asshole. Now you got me, like, questioning the damn movie, and I was fine with it.
Let's stay fine with it. Own your opinions. Come on.
I do. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I thought it was a good film, and I'm just saying good. I'm not saying great. I'm not saying excellent. I thought it was pretty neat that they used the animation, because, again, like, and in my head when I was watching the film, I was like, oh, maybe they are using animation because this happened so long ago, they don't have a lot of footage, and I was okay with that. I was like, okay, well, this is like, it's kind of like you said, it's half a documentary, half like a drama film, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. No, but that it is okay. But I want to know exactly what it is.
But it shouldn't be labeled a documentary.
I don't think so either. Yeah. I really do not think so.
Do they have like categories that are like half documentary, half not? Like
no, not really, because there are so few films that do this. That I think one of the most interesting documentaries I watched is something called Exit Through the Gift Shop. It's about Banksy, and I won't spoil it with you because it sounds like something you might be interested in.
Yeah,
but
I want to watch that.
They do something incredibly weird in that documentary that makes you question exactly what it is. So I'm not against something like that, but in this case, I'm honestly going to rate it as a movie and not a documentary, and because of that, it's not going to be a great review on that end. But if it was mostly a documentary, which I don't think it is, I think I would give it a little more leeway. But that's just my feeling on it, unfortunately.
Like you said, like I do think like the end was documentary style, but the majority of it was not.
The last 30 minutes were, but it just felt like it was a tacked on kind of thing. It was like, here's the documentary part,
we'll just
boom.
throw it on the end. Yeah, like here's the surprise. These are the real people, but we don't even know if what we said at the beginning and middle of this movie is even like from their adaptation.
And that's my question. That's my feeling of it. And if any of you know and you want to put a comment on the video or comment on social media, please let us know.
Tell us. Like, we want to know. We're not going to be able to sleep now. That's it.
Oh, you'll be fine. It'll be me who'll be suffering. Come on. We both know it's going to be me who's going to be like, oh my God, what the hell?
Another thing that I wish they would have done, and maybe this just wasn't... Well, I actually read up, too, that they were just trying to more... focusing on victims, but not violence, I guess, is what they were trying to do. But I'm like, when it comes to true crime, I'm like, dude, I want to know about this guy. Like, why did he... Like, how did he grow up? Like, did he go to that school? Like, did he know anybody that he was killing? Like, it sounds like obviously it was a random act, but like, I wanted to know more about the shooter.
So they don't name him in this movie, which I think was actually a very good idea. I think it would have been a bad idea to do that. From what I have read in the past is that it might have been due to a brain tumor he had.
Really?
Because
that's the shit that interests me.
That really, I can't definitively say that, but apparently when they did the autopsy, the person who did the autopsy noticed that he had a very sizable tumor in his brain. Yeah. The belief is that that might have something to do with it.
Wow.
Because he also killed, I think, his wife and his mother.
Wife and the mother, yeah. They said that at the end, and they kind of like glossed over that. And I'm like, wait. Like, what time did he do that? Like, when did this happen? Like, I just wanted to know more.
Yeah. If they want to do a full account of what happened, then sure. But I think this was more about the victims. So.
Oh yeah, I get it. Like, I almost wish there was like, I mean, maybe there is more on him, like a separate documentary.
There probably is. Yeah. There probably is. But I think that was the point of the film, and it would have been kind of weird if they went over who he was. I think that would have been like, yeah, it's kind of inappropriate. But okay, fine. Yeah. Anything more you want to add? Or you want to get right into final thoughts?
Let's get into final thoughts. I think we beat this one to death.
My God, I thought the last few that I've done about documentaries have been quick, and I'm looking at it now. We're at 41 minutes. You get on with
me, and it's like,
God damn it! Why are you so good to talk to?
I don't know. I guess I'm just that freaking awesome.
God. All right. Final thoughts for Tower. I think a lot of people, when they listen to this, are not going to be happy because they're going to feel like I'm going to unfairly.
I'm going to give this a 1.
Just wait. Just wait. They're going to think I'm unfairly criticizing it for something that's not. But the fact is that I need to know exactly how this was made, because I need to really understand exactly what this is. If most of it's scripted, it's not a documentary to me. I have to do it as such to what the movie actually is.
I think it was scripted, just from the information that we have.
I think so too.
I think it was scripted, but a lot of it was taken from the interviewees, but they still had to script it to put it into to make it an animation. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
So yeah.
I get what you're saying. Bearing in mind that I think that the animated sequences was purely written and directed as a film, I think it was ineffective in its cause. I think the script was very general. It didn't lack any kind of punch that would actually make the drama when it came to certain aspects of the film really work. I mentioned the one thing that broke it for me, and it was 5 minutes into the film, which is when the 8-year-old was talking about what happened, and he seemed way too introspective about it to make it feel believable, which then carried into the rest of the film. I think my issue is I don't think any of the characters felt like characters. And I think that is a big problem I had with this film, because they all kind of sounded the same to a certain extent.
They did sound a little bit the same. I do have to agree with you on that one. And like, they're in Texas. Like, where's the accents?
Well,
I mean, I know it's a university, so people come from like all over the country, but like even the cops, like some of them didn't sound they were in the South at all. Like, even if you move to a southern state, like eventually sometimes you get an accent. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I don't have an accent. Do I have an accent?
No, but you've moved home.
Okay, fine.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but I just feel like there were barely any. Like, I was like, huh? Like, are we in? Like I guess what I'm trying to say is I didn't. It took me a few minutes to keep remembering like they were in Texas. Like, I was like, oh.
I think you'd be kind of surprised in those rural areas how very few people actually have those accents. I was in Dallas and I went to Austin a couple times, which is where this film is actually based on.
Yeah.
Very few people have those draws. But if you go to like
that's boring.
But if you go to like the other parts of Texas, like West Texas or something along those lines, then yes, they have those draws. They have those things. It's really a regional thing. But because it's so distinctive, people think everyone in Texas has those accents. I mean, a couple of them had it. One of the cops had it, but
yeah, one of the cops had it.
But yeah, the performances are okay. I think they were hamstrung by the script that it had, and I have to really question why this needed to be animated. It looks good, but as I was watching it, I really wanted to understand exactly why it had to be animated or why it was. And I really didn't get an answer other than it looked cool.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not enough to do that. I'm going to give this film 2 stars. However, it's going to be a 10 of 2 stars. Because if I find that actually the other thing that I'm thinking of is basically everything was based on what they said during an interview, and no script was done, it was just used from those interview pieces, then I could bump that up to a 2.5. But I'm going to give it 2 stars. I think with the main purpose it has, which shows what happened during those sequences, it does a decent job. But because it was supposed to be of the victims, and it's supposed to be something about what it was like to be a victim of that, I really wanted more out of that aspect, which I did not get. They could have done more, I guess, with more time in those areas, but they didn't do that in the end. So it was like 50 minutes of a drama and 30 minutes of a documentary. And I think the documentary part was too slight for me to actually rate it as anything other than it's fine. But the drama part, I think, didn't work for me. So I'm giving it 2 stars for Tower. Okay, that's fair. It is, because it's my opinion.
Okay, well, fuck you.
Yeah, back at you.
So I'm going to give Tower a 2.5 stars.
Okay.
I almost went to 3, but I was like, It kept my interest, which is important to me for documentaries, because I've seen, like I mentioned, I've seen some where I'm just like, okay, this is like ridiculously boring, too slow, nothing to look at. Like, so I enjoy the animation, again, because I haven't seen really any documentaries with animation in it, and I did think it was kind of artsy, but I kind of liked that. And I am too curious, now that you mentioned that, like what the director and writer were working with for actual facts and information straight from the victims' mouths themselves, because maybe they didn't, just to give the benefit of the doubt, maybe they didn't have a lot to work with. Like, we don't know. It's just still a mystery.
Right.
So for me, 2.5 is fair, because I enjoyed the film. I thought that it was an interesting piece. It seemed like an art project to me, but I kind of liked that because I haven't seen a documentary like that before. So it was different, and it kept my attention. Being the true crime junkie that I am, I totally understand this was for the victim, so I do respect and appreciate that. But I wanted to learn more about Charles Whitman, so I guess this opened a door for me to go see if there's another documentary on him, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was a good documentary. I didn't think it was great. I've seen way better, but I've also seen way worse. So it's kind of like average, middle of the road to me. You did get my brain going with what is facts from this, I guess, script, from the animated part. Like, what is real versus what is scripted? And to have to question that for a documentary, it's just kind of odd that it's categorized as so.
Yes.
But I mean, I do agree with that portion of your review of it.
Mad respect.
Mad respect.
Yeah.
I wicked respect that.
Yeah, let's go to Dunkin'. Yeah.
Get me a fucking iced coffee in the middle of winter.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all based on stuff that actually happened, obviously. I think the victim testimony is true. I don't think anything is embellished. But my issue really is dialogue and the way that the film was portrayed. Mock documentaries are obviously a thing. Like, there's a whole series called The Office that does it. The Christopher Guest does comedies that are mockumentaries. If this is what they were trying to do, which was a mockumentary on it, then I could kind of appreciate that. That's what it seems like.
It's the way it's categorized. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if they're obfuscating what it truly is, or it's just a hybrid of such. But I just look at this. I'm almost
thinking it's like a hybrid.
Honestly, it might just be, but even if it is a hybrid, I have to basically criticize it for what it is, what it has. So I want to give it more benefit of the doubt, but I don't think I can. That's the hard time I'm having here.
I think my thing, like, the reason why I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt is because of how long ago it happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the timing. Like, if it was more recent, I'd be like, oh yeah, this could have been done way better. But like 1966, like filming this in 2016, like that's a huge time gap.
Right.
You know,
no, so I understand that, but there are documentaries that deal with things that happened a long time ago that didn't have these types of film or whatever but they use archival footage, they use reenactments, they use different things to show what happens.
Well, it's almost like they tried to use the animation as a reenactment, but it wasn't like actual, I guess, script from the people, like the victims.
God, man.
Again, we don't know. We're just going round and round.
That is the main problem I have.
We don't know.
I just don't know, and I think that's a problem for a documentary. Yes. So I am divorcing it as a documentary and putting it the drama feature film thing, and as that, I don't think it's very good. So 2 stars for me for Tower, 2.5 for Kim.
Before we move on,
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. So, which story did you feel was the saddest? I'm sure this is probably obvious, but like in the film for the victim,
the saddest?
Yeah, like the situation. Like I feel like the pregnant lady.
Obviously,
that's so sad. Like she lost her baby and like.
Yes, absolutely. Like that is probably the saddest story, and I understand why that was the central story that they kind of kept on.
Imagine laying on the pavement for that long, like in the Texas heat.
In August, yes.
Pregnant?
Yeah.
Shot? Like, oh my God, awful.
Right, and your boyfriend's right there dead. Yeah. But even then, like.
No, we're not talking about that anymore. We know. We don't know what we don't know, but I'm just saying, like, from a situational
I'm not getting into that, but
it's just sad.
I'm not getting into that, but talking about that also really points out how not great the writing is, because that should have been a much more powerful thing. That should have been a much more powerful thing that happened, especially when the one lady, Rita, came by and tried to help her. And try to keep her awake. That should have been a much more, I would say, I think that should have been a much more of a powerful thing that happened in the movie, and it kind of went, for me on that. It was kind of like, I get what they were doing, and I you know what I mean?
It was a little glossed over, I think.
Yes. I think, honestly, it was a missed opportunity, and if someone decided to make this into an actual movie, I wouldn't be against it. Like, if they would have actually made it into a feature film got really good actors and a very good writer and director.
I think that would actually be a really good film.
Yeah, I think that would really work. And I think that would actually benefit this story. Because I don't think the documentary does that great of a job.
Yeah, I do like
even if it is not a documentary.
I do like the part, though, where they, like the little bit of suspense they did portray when they were going to shoot down the shooter.
Yes.
I did enjoy that part too.
That was pretty good. I do have to question why the guy shot the wall right next to the cop, though.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
Like,
but why? He's not really experienced. Right?
I guess,
like,
but I think even though I am not experienced with guns at all, I would say, shoot in the air. Like, what do you...
shut the fuck up. Like, he's trying to sneak up on the guy to like shoot him. Like, don't shoot something. Like, I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah.
But...
Anyway, 2 stars
on.
2 stars for me for Tower, 2.5 for Kim. I can't say people don't watch it, because I really am curious if other people think about this, but I just did not.
I think people should watch it and give us their opinion.
It's on Curiosity Stream. It is a stream that just does documentaries. So if you want to watch
I didn't even know that. I ended up just renting it.
Yeah. You can also rent it too, but check it out if you want. I would say check it out. I just was not entirely enthusiastic.
Yes, please watch it, because we want to know your opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.